we've had a night to digest the Commanders' surprisingly dominant win over the Detroit Lions. What does it mean to the 49ers? I've been looking at a lot of the content creators and journalists and fans' reaction to this game, and it mostly centers around the Lions. And the response is like glee. Oh my goodness, the Lions are done. They missed their Super Bowl window. And I completely understand that reaction from 49ers fans. Analysts, not so much, but fans, yes, because it was such an awful year. It's nice to sort of take pleasure in other teams' misery. And the Lions looked like they had passed the 49ers as the team to beat in the NFC. I mean, a lot of teams had passed the Niners as the team to beat in the NFC, but it looked like the Lions had established themselves as the dominant team that teams had to go through in the NFC for not just this year, but the foreseeable future. And now it's like, maybe not. And maybe Jared Goff really is a limiting factor. Now, he was awful in this game, but the main reason the Lions lost was their defense, which was missing about 5 or 6 starters. They gave up 48 points. As bad as Jared Goff was, their offense scored 31. That's enough to win. So I think we probably should have seen this coming. We just saw the Lions play the Niners 3 weeks ago. Niners lost, but they scored a lot of points. The Lions defense really is decimated. So that's not the excuse. That's the reason they lost. And if they lose their coordinators, they may not be as good next year. So that's good news for the 49ers. What's not so good news for the Niners is what's going on with the Washington Commanders. All of a sudden, they look like they could be the team to beat in the NFC West in the NFC for a while. Now we'll see what they do against either the Rams or the Eagles. Those teams look really good too, but the Commanders are a problem. And I think what's so interesting about him is, let's just start with their quarterback, Jaden Daniels. The Niners haven't had to face a quarterback like him in the playoffs in the NFC yet. You know, all those really difficult, elite, dual threat quarterbacks that beat the 49ers are in the AFC. The Niners have never beaten Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. So now you got sort of a Lamar Jackson type in the NFC. That's, to me, the best comparison for Jaden Daniels. He's not as flashy as Lamar, but they both ran for about 900 yards and about 5 touchdowns. Really, Jaden Daniels' stat line this year mirrored Lamar Jackson's stat line last year when he won the MVP. So that guy is in the Niners conference, not going anywhere. And what's really disheartening from Niner fans' perspective, or boosters' perspective, you know who you are, is the fact that they also have an excellent head coach in Dan Quinn, an excellent offensive coordinator, apparently, in Cliff Kingsbury. Not a good head coach, but he's not the head coach on this team. Quinn is, and he's really, really good. He's, in a lot of ways, what people think Dan Campbell is. Quinn might be the more genuine version of it. And they have a really good general manager. Came from the 49ers, Adam Peters. That might be the biggest difference between these teams. I mean, Brock Purdy, good quarterback, not Jaden Daniels. Kyle Shanahan, good offensive coordinator, a lot different than Cliff Kingsbury. They don't have a Dan Quinn type. Maybe if they get Robert Saleh back in the building, he can be that kind of a guy. The energy, the enthusiasm, the positivity. But they don't have a general manager like Adam Peters. They used to. And I think a lot of Niner fans will want to interrupt me here and say, well, but Grant, the Niners draft was really good this year. It was, and they get full credit for that. It was really good, as was the Commanders draft. But let's focus on free agency. Let's look at the players the Niners sign and the players the Commanders sign as a little bit of a contrast. Let's start with Adam Peters and the Commanders, who, I mean, they were 12-5 this season. Last season, they were 4-13. So that's quite a turnaround. 4-13 to 12-5. Who are the players that Adam Peters signed? I got the list. Austin Eckler, Bobby Wagner, Marcus Mariota, Zach Ertz, Dante Fowler, Tyler Biadasz, Dorrance Armstrong, Jeremy Chin, Zane Gonzalez, Nick Allegretti, Noah Igbenogany, and Olamide Zacchaeus. Those are all guys who contribute to the team. I mean, really the best signing, Bobby Wagner, 1-year deal. Compare that to John Lynch, who signed Devondre Campbell, 1-year deal, $5 million. Could have had Bobby Wagner if they spent a little bit more, but no, he got Devondre Campbell. There's a big difference there. Bobby Wagner's like a future Hall of Famer captain type, and Devondre Campbell, well, he quit. Then they got Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, Yatir Gross-Matos, John Feliciano, Joshua Dobbs, Jordan Elliott, Rock Ya-Sin, Isaac Yadam, and Chase Lucas. So they got a whole lot of nothing. They got some old guys who aren't going to be here when it matters. They got the worst linebacker they could have possibly. I mean, they got no one who really moved the needle. They added some defensive line. They added pass rushers. But the problem for the Niners is they can't stop the run. So they were never really in these positions in games, 3rd and 7 or longer, where Leonard Floyd or Malik Collins or even Nick Bosa could win the game for them because they can't freaking stop the run. So the Commanders are looking like a team that the Niners are going to have to deal with. And it's, I think also from Niner fans' perspective, it's not just Washington. I mean, there's so many teams that have passed up the 49ers right now. And look at Washington. They're going to be adding players to their team. They're an up-and-coming team. Are the Niners going to be adding a bunch of players this offseason? Not to get too doom and gloom, but with all that cap space, they got to sign, they're going to sign Greenlaw. They're probably going to sign Hufanga. They got to give a new deal to Fred Warner and Kittle and Purdy. They'll probably bring back Jordan Mason. I mean, there's a lot of their own players they got to re-sign just to maintain a team that just went 6-11. So they're still kind of in the position of like hoping and praying Trent Williams plays 17 games. Christian McCaffrey plays 17 games. Ayuk's not going to play 17 games, but you're hoping and praying that he's what he was when he does come back. And then I think they're hoping and praying that Deebo Samuel has a bounce back year. Don't know why, but they're in the hoping and praying mode while a lot of other teams in the NFC, particularly Washington, seem to have a better plan. I mean, you look at the teams that are alive still in the NFC, Washington, Philly, and the Rams. This is being recorded before the Philly and Rams game. So this is going to be instantly dated, but those teams all have really good D lines. The Niners don't. The Niners have, Nick Bosa, and now they're going to have to cut Javon Hargrave. They signed him from the Eagles. Eagles didn't want him. They drafted Jalen Carter, who's way better. So the Niners are going to have to get rid of him. They have nothing left at defensive tackle. They're going to have to draft one. Here are the defensive tackles that they've drafted under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, even when Adam Peters was here. Solomon Thomas, Julian Taylor, Kentavious Street, Javon Kinlaw, DJ Jones, Kalia Davis. That's it. One good one out of 6. DJ Jones, not even on the team anymore. So that's sort of where I am with the 49ers. They're going to be focused on extending their quarterback this offseason where they can't even stop the run. And if they were to face Philly in the playoffs, they couldn't stop Saquon Barkley. They couldn't stop Jalen Hurts. They never beat that version of the Eagles with Barkley. They never beat the Eagles with Vic Fangio. Like, the Eagles are significantly past the Niners. Maybe the Lions aren't. I don't know. They played each other a few weeks ago, and that was a pretty close game. The Lions might be falling back to earth. But the Niners couldn't stop they wouldn't be able to stop the Commander zone read running game. No. That's job 1A for the Niners this offseason is beef up the interior of their defense, because it's not just a defensive tackle issue, although it's huge. It's a big defensive tackle issue. It's also a linebacker issue. They got Fred Warner, who's good, but he's one player. And he got hurt this year, played through an injury, wasn't quite himself. They got Dre Greenlaw, who may or may not come back. And if he does come back, I mean, he hasn't shown that he can make it through a full game without getting hurt. He had a triumphant return, left at halftime, didn't play again. No, he did come back, played 4 snaps, and that was it the next week. So they have one good linebacker. They have no good defensive tackles, and they have one good safety in Malik Mustafa. Jair Brown, Talanoa Hufanga, we don't know if he's going to be on the team next year. So the Niners are soft up the middle against in a conference that has the Commanders and the Eagles. So that's going to be interesting. One more thing about the Commanders that's interesting to me, how they've really rehabilitated Cliff Kingsbury's career. He was a joke last year, and now you're looking at him like, oh man, are you one of the more creative offensive coordinators? I mean, you're not really from anyone's tree. You got a lot of this college stuff, and in your system that we didn't think would work. We attributed a lot of your failures. Well, now maybe we attribute a lot of your failures to Kyler Murray. Maybe the reason that he didn't do so well in Arizona is that Kyler Murray was a little immature when he was the quarterback at that time and was more into video games and football. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like that's the issue with Jaden Daniels. All of a sudden, you give Cliff Kingsbury a good quarterback and a good head coach, and he has good ideas. And I think people may not remember, but once upon a time, Dan Quinn did the same service for Kyle Shanahan. You may not remember this, but Kyle Shanahan was a disgrace when he left Washington. He got run out of town, him and his dad. So it wasn't like the whole league. Remember people say, if you fire Kyle Shanahan, he'll get a job in 5 seconds. That dude had to go to the Cleveland Browns. He didn't even take Bobby Turner with him. Like, he was on his own. Last stop in his career. Went to the Cleveland Browns to be their OC. Didn't go so well. Asked out of his contract. He was out of options. Dan Quinn brought him onto his staff, and a lot of people at the time in 2015 thought, like, what is Dan Quinn doing? His stock was super high. He'd won a Super Bowl with the Legion of Boom. He was in demand. Kyle wasn't. He brought Kyle onto his staff, and all of a sudden, people looked at Kyle Shanahan as a really smart coach. But Dan Quinn, he may not be an X's and O's guy, but he went to a Super Bowl in Seattle as a coordinator, won it. Went to a Super Bowl in Atlanta as a head coach, lost. And now he's in the NFC Championship game, one step away from the Super Bowl with a third team. That's very impressive. He's a hell of a coach. He's the coach of the year. He's a better coach than Dan Campbell. And again, Niner fans, I know it's really fun to say that Dan Campbell's a joke and that Jared Goff is overrated. Go for it. But that's not really the issue anymore because Washington exists and they're really freaking good.